Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn about clustering algorithm. So as you all know that in machine learning there are four types of machine learning. First is is supervised. In supervised machine learning, what happens? There is a supervisor, or we can say the data. There is labeled data points given to the machine, and then machine process those labeled data points, and it gives us the value. So in supervised learning, we have two things, that is classification, and then second one is regression. And then we have second machine learning, that is unsupervised. In unsupervised, what happens? We uh, we are given unlabeled data points, mean there is no labeling, and those unlabeled data are given to the machine, and machine has to process and interpret itself that uh, so a machine do all the processing by itself, and then it gives you the value. In this unsupervised, there are two types, like analysis, cluster analysis, and then second is association. Then we have dimension reduction. So now then there is another type of machine learning, that is semi supervised, and the last one is reinforcement. So in this lecture we are talking about this cluster analysis, that is cluster algorithm. We are going to study about cluster algorithm. So what is clustering algorithm? So clustering algorithm is it is a unsupervised it is an unsupervised it is an unsupervised learning technique that helps us to give it helps the data in the grouping of data points. It is used to classify the data points into specific groups. Now there are algorithm five popular clustering algorithm that every data scientist must know about. So first one here is k-mean. So in this lecture we are going to talk about the k-mean algorithm. So the k-mean clustering. So what is k-mean? So here in this algorithm, the k means number of clusters. It means the number of clusters, and this number of cluster you need to define the number of clusters before you start the algorithm. And mean, here we use mean of the data points to find centroid of cluster. Now talking about its working, so how this algorithm works. So in step 1, what we have to do, determine k before algorithm is started. So why do we determine what is this k? K is number of cluster. How many cluster do you need? We need to determine it before the algorithm start. Next we have step number 2, that is choose k instance randomly. So this here we are choosing the k instances, mean k data points. We use the k data points. Now third is uh, after choosing the data points, these data points will be the initial cluster. So the data point which we have chosen at the starting of the algo will be considered as our initial cluster, Next, after you have made the data points, you have taken some data points as the initial cluster, we will compare the rest of data points with this initial cluster and find Euclidean distance, and then we will find Euclidean distance between them. And then on the basis of this distance, we will assign them to those clusters. So like if initially we have chosen 2 or 3 cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3. So as we know that we have already chosen some data points for those clusters. Now the rest of the data points, like if there are some rest of the data points, like so we will take the Euclidean distance from those clustered from data points to those cluster, and finding the Euclidean distance, and we will see if there we will see like if we have like cluster 1, cluster 2 and cluster 3, and this is data point 4 comma 5, and this is now after finding and this is some data point x1 y1, this is x2 y2, and this is x3 comma y3. So we will find the Euclidean distance by this: 4 minus x1 whole square plus 5 minus y1 whole square. Now we will do the same for this: 4 minus x2 whole square plus 5 minus y2 whole square, and then next is 4 minus x3 whole square plus 5 minus y3 whole square. After finding the distance, this is d1, this is d2 and this is d3. We have find the distance of this point from these clusters. Now we will see which is the smallest one. If we find that d1 is the smallest, then d2 and smallest than d3, we know d1 is the smallest. So this d1 is the distance of this data point from this cluster. So here 4 comma 5, we will assign 4 comma 5 to C1, means cluster 1. So this data point will be assigned to the cluster 1. So in this way we will be assigning the data points. Like if we have some other data points, like we have 6 2, 3 2 and 1 1, 2 3, and like we have rest of the data point. Like this we are going to assign these to some clusters, like we will assign this to C2, this C1, C3 and C1, like this, and then we will make a cluster table. And like here in C1 we know we have 4 5, we have 3 2 and we have 2 comma 3. Then in C2 we have 6 comma 2, and then in C3 we have 1 comma 1. In this way we will be building a cluster table, and then we will be computing the new centroid. And step number 4 is compute new centroid. Again, see, when we have started the algo, at that point the centroid of those cluster were the initial data points, like the initial data point that we have selected randomly. Like if we have there were some data points a b c d and e f, so these were the 3 initial data points that we have randomly selected. Now these will be the centroid of the c1, c2 and c3. After we have started the algo, now the rest of these so if we have taken this ab as this one, and this is CD and this is EF. These were the data points, initial data points. So these will be inside this cluster. and the rest of the point that you will be finding by Euclidean distance, and you will assign them to the cluster. Now we have assigned, now we have to compute the new centroid again. How do we compute the this centroid? By taking the mean. So we compute the mean of initial cluster. How do we compute the mean? See, all the distances, all the x data points and all the y data points need to be added, and this will be giving you the new coordinates of the centroid. So this x1, x2 and dot dot, and this n, and comma this y1, y2 and yn upon n. So this will be giving you new centroid. So here we are talking about centroid. This is data point A. So this data point needs, this also need to be considered here. A plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 divided by how many data points we have? 4. Divide by 4. Now in y we will be taking b plus 5 plus 2 plus 3 upon 4. So in the same manner, for this data point will be calculated, centroid will be calculated. So this is the new centroid. So this is a new centroid. Now we will compare this centroid with the earlier centroid AB. So we have here centroid A. This is centroid 1 because that we have find in the initial. Initially we have this centroid. Now we have find this modified centroid. Now we will compare what is the now we will compare. See if they are same or they are different. If they are different, then we will go to the next iteration. So if they are different, we will go to the next iteration. It means we will perform the step 3 to 4 till algo becomes stable and with no more change. So now we have performed the step 3 to 4 till algo becomes stable and with no more change. Now as you can see, so you will again perform the iteration. You will go to the next iteration. You will perform again those steps 3 to 4. That is, you will take the rest of the data point. Now this new centroid is this one. Now we will be taking the again the rest of the data points will be taken, and we will find this the centroid again for these two, and then we will check that new centroid with this one centroid. We will calculate centroid number 3, and then we will compare this one with the centroid 2. If they are same, then algo will be stopped there. Otherwise you will continue the algo till the algo gets stable and you get the same centroid. So basically k-mean clustering is used to advantage of so uses is, first aim of the k-mean clustering is to reduce the, or we can say reduce or minimize the SSE, that is sum of squared error. Okay, so you need to minimize it. Advantages of k-mean is that it is simple, and yes, its complexity is O n square. Complexity is O n square, and advantage is it's simple and it is very fast, and its disadvantages is that it is not trivial. Not trivial because we need to randomly because we have to randomly select k before algo start. Means we have to select the number of cluster we required, and second, it is inconsistent. So that's it for today, and we will be learning about next algo in the next video lecture, and I will also solve some problems based on the k-mean.